Don't let the heat of the moment catch you off guard. Northwest Fire District Public Education Team offers a range of programs including fire and life safety community education, fire extinguisher training, car seat inspections, babysitting programs, senior safety talks, engine demonstrations, and station tours. Your well-being is our priority. For more information, visit nwfdaz.gov or call us at 520-887-1010. Together, we can create a safer and more informed community.
Do you have a need for speed? Whether you want to improve your race time or just have fun, the Run Marana series has something for everyone. Choose your challenge and sign up for one of the 5 races held throughout the year. Visit maranaz.gov/run to sign up. Your speed, your run, your town.
Welcome to Real Talk with the Town, where I sit down with Marana staff to answer your burning questions about our beautiful community. My name is Terry Rozema, and I'm the town manager for the town, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Talk with the Town. My name is Terry, and I am your host, and today we're going to be talking about how can residents evacuate Dove Mountain in the event of a fire. Right? So, in the studio here with me today, I have Northwest Fire Chief Brad Bradley. Brad, how are you today?
Great, sir. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Good to have you. And also, our Public Works Director, who's also responsible for transportation, Fausto Burruel. Fausto's been on the show many times, probably more times than he cares to be on the show. But Fausto, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Terry. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, Brad and Fausto, as an icebreaker, I'm just kind of curious. We're exiting the football season, which is very sad to me. Brad mentioned beforehand that he's kind of a college football fanatic, as am I. I love college football. But we got the Super Bowl right around the corner. Did your team make it in? Are you a Chiefs fan? Are you an Eagles fan, Fausto?
Well, to be honest, I really haven't had a football team in the NFL for a while.
Okay.
So when I was younger, and I mean going back a few years, maybe like the Theismann and Riggin days, I was, you know which team I'm talking about.
The Redskins.
Used to be the Redskins, now the Commanders, but I can't claim that any longer. It's been years since then, but I think in this one I'm pulling for the Eagles.
Okay, he's going for the Eagles. All right. So Brad, now even though you're not an NFL fan per se, college football fan, and you're a Wolverine fan, right? Michigan Wolverine fan?
Not exactly.
Oh, not exactly. I forgot.
In fact, the exact opposite.
The exact opposite? Like a loser team then.
Oklahoma Sooners.
Oh, well, not a loser team then, because they're a pretty powerhouse football team. So Oklahoma Sooners fan, but for the Super Bowl, you got somebody you're rooting for there?
Chiefs all day.
You're going to be rooting for the Chiefs.
Mahomes.
3 in a row could set history here with 3 Super Bowls in a row if they can get past the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see. Not this Sunday, the following Sunday, I guess, right?
There you go.
All right. Well, I'm kind of pulling for. Honestly, I might not even watch this one. I was pulling for the Commanders and the Buffalo Bills to get in. Honestly, I was hoping they were going to be the Super Bowl teams, but it's the Eagles and the Chiefs, and we'll see who wins.
That's it.
Flip of the coin for me.
And Terry, did your team make it in?
No, Fausto. Thank you for opening that wound. I appreciate it. As a Lions fan, I've been a loser my entire life. But that being said, we've had a couple of good seasons back to back, and I'm hoping we'll be back there next year. We'll see. Yeah, Fausto Burruel, funny guy that Fausto. Well, hey. So we're not here to talk about football, actually. We're here to talk about Dove Mountain and specifically wildfires and what we would call affectionately the world's longest cul-de-sac, right? Goes all the way up into Dove Mountain. Dove Mountain Boulevard goes way back in there, 5-6 miles, something like that. Quite a ways back there. And we had a resident that wrote in here and said, I'm a resident of Dove Mountain, just west of the Ritz. And it's very concerning to us that with the amount of new homes being planned for Dove Mountain, that if there was an emergency, fire evacuation, etc., we are on a 1-lane road after the Ritz roundabout, and we would not be able to safely evacuate. So that's the major issue here. We have a long cul-de-sac, right, a long road. One way in, one way out. If there's a fire up there, what do we do? Now, we've kind of addressed this a little bit in the past on a previous episode. But, very important that we have our fire chief here. And although he doesn't work for the town because the fire district is separate from the town, I know he has a great answer for this. So we're going to start over here with Chief Bradley.
Yeah, I think I would probably just start with, all of the concerns associated with the California wildfires and others that have occurred throughout the country always raises concerns for our local community, particularly up in the Dove Mountain area. But with that said, it would take a really unprecedented and catastrophic event to trigger even a partial evacuation of that area. And as it relates to wildfire in particular, there are a few things that really are unique about the Dove Mountain community that really aid the fire department in being able to respond and mitigate and actually prevent catastrophic fires from occurring to begin with. And so you look at comparisons between what's happening in California versus Dove Mountain in particular. And these things don't necessarily exist. The things that we'll talk about, they're different depending upon the climates just throughout Arizona. You look at the vegetation first and foremost that's out in California. Most of what is burning is chaparral. It's manzanita. It's a different type of manzanita that we have here. It's a different subtype. But
is that a tree? What are we talking about
bush.
here? It's a bush.
It's a bush.
All
So
right.
if you've ever been up in northern Arizona or even up in the Catalinas, a very leafy green, almost rubber-like looking bush that has red branches to it.
Oh, yes.
It's manzanita.
Okay.
Highly, highly flammable. It is oil-based. The leaf is full of oil.
Okay.
That's why you have these fires in California, and there's other reasons, but it's mainly chaparral, this type of manzanita that's oil-based. It burns incredibly hot, and it's a sustained burn. It burns for a long time. And so we don't have that here. That type of manzanita, although it exists in Arizona, it doesn't grow below 3,500 feet in elevation. The highest peak in the Tortolitas is about 4,900. So you'll have some manzanita up on top. But for the largest part, there isn't any that would pose a risk to that Dove Mountain community.
So the fuel source, Chief, is very important here. When we start talking about wildland fires and fires that burn up large areas and encroach upon residential communities, what's around the residential communities is very important.
Absolutely.
So it differentiates here compared to California. So what's the fuel type here that's on Dove Mountain?
What we call it is fine fuels.
Okay.
It's the grass, some shrubs, but they are things that burn very, very quickly. They're not sustained in their burn, and the heat associated with it is nowhere near the heat that will come off of a manzanita bush and other chaparral out in California and some other areas of Arizona. And so and it will not spread as rapidly. We've got a number of things working in our advantage in the Dove Mountain community. Number one, they're on the south face of the Tortolita Mountains.
Why is that good?
It is good because it gets continuous, direct sunshine and less moisture. So if you look at any mountain range in Arizona, the northern face of every mountain range will be heavily forested. It'll be thick because it gets less direct sunlight and it holds more moisture. And so, and particularly on the south face of the Tortolitas, you've got a lot of natural breaks, washes, canyons, rock faces, things of that nature. So those all work in our favor in terms of rates of spread. And so if you
now, Chief, I'm going to stop you right there for a minute because for people out there who might be as dumb as me, I need you to explain something to me. So south face is drier, right? North face has more moisture.
Correct.
But moisture is the enemy of a fire, right? So why in the south side, if it's drier, you would think that it's more susceptible to fire? That's what my little mind would think. But you're the fire expert, so explain to them why my thinking doesn't make any sense.
More moisture means more vegetation. More vegetation means more fuel to burn.
Oh, there you go.
Less moisture, less vegetation, less fuel.
Yeah, you totally brought that home for me.
There you go.
I really appreciate it, Chief. Well done. Well said.
So with that, we also have, now if we were having a conversation, if Dove Mountain community sat on the north face of the Tortolitas, higher elevation, different ecosystem, different fuel. It's not Sonoran Desert. It's more higher grassland with manzanita. We don't have that on the south face.
Okay.
And so also, fire does not burn downhill very well. It burns uphill.
Well, that totally makes sense to me. That totally makes sense to me.
So the Dove Mountain community sits at the base of the Tortolitas. So
Yeah.
the fires naturally would want to burn uphill,
Okay.
not downhill. Now, anything that does come over the top will have ample notice and ample time to prepare, to evacuate if necessary. But knowing what that south face of the Tortolitas look like, the fact that there's space, there's separation between most of the plants. They're either separated by rocks or desert or a wash, or maybe they're not separated at all, but there's such fine fuel that it's going to burn very, very quickly. It won't burn that hot. Rate of spread, how fast that fire is going to move is going to be much, much slower. We don't have the types of winds here that you've got in California, where they've got sustained winds, not just gusts, sustained winds of 50, 60, 70 miles an hour for days on end.
Right.
Now, we may have gusts that don't help us relative to fire spread, but they're not sustained. And because we're talking about fine fuels, and there's natural fire breaks and man-made fire breaks. Now, one of the things that you don't see a lot of in California are fire lines that are cut into those hills and those mountains.
And we have those here?
Well, what we have are roads that are cut all the way through the communities.
Right.
We have trails that go up and over the top.
Yeah.
If you ever look at the Tortolitas and go around, there are 2-track roads and trails
All over.
that go all over. Those are all fire breaks. Those all
interesting.
work to stop the spread of fire.
So, Chief, you've been here in the Marana area, the northwest Tucson area, for a pretty long time, decades.
We got 28, 29, almost 30 years.
Okay, coming up on 3 decades.
Right.
Have you ever seen a fire in Dove Mountain that would even come close to matching what we've seen in other parts of the country? Like the California one is kind of out there. But, a few years ago, we even had one, there was one over in Oro Valley in the Catalinas that burned pretty well. And, some people were concerned about their houses. They didn't get that close, but,
Right.
People started having some concerns. So
Certainly.
And anything that you've seen like that in the Northwest up here in the Dove Mountain area?
Not in Dove Mountain proper.
Okay.
I've seen some fairly aggressive fire behavior on the north side, particularly last year. There were a couple of fires that lit up. But
That's
again,
right.
that's
You
not
guys spent,
that's not Sonoran Desert over there. That's high grassland. And so
Well, that's the difference.
that is the difference.
Yeah.
That is the difference. And so, the other thing there are 2 other things that really work in our favor in that Dove Mountain community. We've talked about low fuels, light fuel. We've talked about the topography just helping us out. The roadways that are cut through there. Also, the fact that the properties that are there don't have a lot of vegetation in their front yards, their side yards. They have block walls that are barriers as opposed to wood fences like you're going to see in California. You've got the ceiling tiles are either made out of ceramic or stucco. Those don't burn, and there is a really robust water supply up in the Dove Mountain area, which is dissimilar from what we saw recently, obviously in California.
So where does that robust water supply, where's that coming from?
That's Tucson water.
Okay.
And so while we don't, Tucson water, we work with. We don't have any say over the water departments, right? And so as a fire district, we work with 5 or 6 different water purveyors.
Okay.
We've got Marana water that we work with. We've got Metro water, Oro Valley water, Cortero water.
Who's your favorite?
Flowing wells. Oh, Marana all day.
Did you hear
easy.
that, ladies and gentlemen?
That's a no-brainer. So, But that area up
Good
in Dove
answer,
Mountain
Chief.
has some of the largest water mains and water supply available. And we test those hydrants every year. We go out and we turn every single hydrant to make sure that there's ample water supply available. And if we end up finding a hydrant that's inoperable, we report it, and it's usually fixed within 24 to 48 hours.
Excellent answers here. Wonderful information. So let's just say, like worst case scenario. It sounds like this is a pretty far out possibility, but let's say we hit the 1 in a million situation where we've got to start getting people out of Dove Mountain. What's your plan? Do you have a plan? Have you even given any thought to that?
Certainly, absolutely. Yeah, we would work closely. Now, number one, our priority is to make sure, our mission is to save lives, protect property, and care for community. But when we've got a robust response, right, again, this would have to be a very catastrophic, once-in-a-lifetime event to cause even a partial evacuation relative to wildfire in that community. We would work very, very closely with Marana Police Department. Marana Police Department would be coordinating the evacuations out. Our job, first and foremost, is to go in, secure water supplies, and start pre-treating structures that we feel might be at risk.
And by pre-treating, you mean watering them down.
We're going to water them down. We're going to take a look at them.
Give them a bath.
Exactly. And so now remember, the Tortolita Mountains, it's mostly state land, but there's a lot of federal land up there as well, and there's some county land as well. So you're talking about a whole of government response, and so that's going to require a unified command system to be put in place, where we're going to have, I'll be sitting there with Chief Pritchett, and we'll have somebody from Office of Emergency Management. We'll have folks from Arizona State Land, Department of Forestry. We'll have folks from the federal government, from the National Forest Service, and there'll be a whole of government approach to mitigating a wildfire in that area. We're very well versed at doing this. We do this all over the country. We have crews deployed out in California right now. That's normal for us. But what I don't want to do is take away from the concerns that our community members have. And our job is to educate. Yep. That's the purpose of this discussion today, and try and do everything that we can to explain rationally to folks that, we hear your concerns, but we're here to address those concerns and mitigate those concerns to the greatest degree possible. I think, the likelihood of something occurring catastrophic in Dove Mountain is incredibly low. But should it occur, we're incredibly well versed at responding to it through our resources, the town's resources, county resources, state resources, federal resources. All of those things should come together and provide all of the mitigation that's necessary. And back to your original question about, trying to make sure in terms of evacuation. You've got 2 lanes that are going up Dove Mountain, 2 lanes that are coming back. Depending upon the circumstances, we could have 4 lanes that are just egress. Just get off.
Shut it all down. Nobody goes in. Everybody's coming out.
That's exactly right.
And in the area past the Ritz-Carlton, where it's just 1 lane in, 1 lane out, it would just be 2 lanes coming out, nobody going in.
Correct, and it may be such a thing as we look at a kind of a graduated evacuation. If we have a wildfire in that area that's going to require an evacuation of the entire community, we're going to know about it well in advance. It's going to be a fire that is coming at us, not one that's going to have originated in the Dove Mountain community. It just doesn't work that way. And so with that said, we could look at the furthest, the communities, that are west of that roundabout. Those are the first to come out, because of the structure of the roadways, where it's only 2 lanes right there. Those would be the first to come out. Then the next would be, from this point to point A to point B. Let's get all of those folks out, and we'll work very closely with Marana PD and others to be able to facilitate that.
Well, I got to believe that for our listeners, this has got to be, for those who have had some anxiety, some stress related to all of this, and not minimizing any of that, but it's got to be extremely comforting, I would hope, to have somebody with your level of experience, reputation, standing in not only the fire community, but the public safety community and in the community as a whole, sitting here on this podcast with me saying, look, the chances of this are extremely small, but if it were to happen, we have a plan and we will work that plan. And we do these plans, we work these kinds of plans all the time.
All the time.
Right. Excellent. So, Chief, I really appreciate it. I think this has been highly educational for me, and I want to turn my attention now, because he's been waiting very patiently, quietly over here in the corner, to Fausto Burruel, our transportation, our Public Works Director, who's also responsible for transportation, streets, and roads, and talk a little bit. And this has been a topic. It comes up every once in a while, and I'm sure we'll have to talk about it again in a year or two or three. So, Fausto, this whole idea of the world's largest, longest cul-de-sac, what plans are there to change that?
So first, before I start, I just want to say thank you, Chief. That was very educational, and it answered some questions I had. I was wondering about the vegetation and some of the similarities and differences to what's going on with California. So in regards to Dove Mountain, when it was initially proposed, and of course we're going back into the late 80s, the Red Hawk development, and of course now as we know it as the Dove Mountain, it was proposed, if you will, or stated that, eventually the long cul-de-sac would extend to the west and at some point ultimately connect to the roadway network further west, which may even be the interstate. However, a few things have happened since that time. One, it was identified that that would happen with future development, which we have not seen. And I'll get back to that point in just a few. The other thing, in some of the future iterations or more recent iterations of that Dove Mountain, the zoning, the specific plan, some of those documents that have been generated, it was identified that there were several challenges to extend that roadway to the west. The biggest one being the environmental impacts. As you know, there's a considerable amount of washes, as Chief had mentioned, just the topography, wildlife, and then there's also the state land element that to going through that area. So any development that would occur, there is none on the horizon in the near term. In fact, we recently updated our transportation master plan, and in the master plan, we left that area. We didn't identify roadways through that network because at this point it is very unknown. Now, I say that knowing that our general plan that we did a few years back did identify just some connections going through that area in question. However, we just don't have any imminent plans as far as development, and the town has no plans of doing any roadway work in that area at this time.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate the explanation. Now, I'm going to throw something else out here, which may be a possibility in the future. Not anything that's on the immediate horizon, but at some point there's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong here, an interchange, hopefully, at Moore Road and I-10. Now, Moore Road is also in Dove Mountain, right? It goes right past the school there, the STEM school, and then dead ends into the desert. What's the possibility of Moore Road at the interchange extending through state land at some point and connecting into Dove Mountain at that Moore Road connection?
As they say, never say never.
Never say never.
One thing to identify is the Moore Road traffic interchange is actually shifting a little bit to the west, to the northwest, if you will, about a quarter mile, give or take, from where it currently sits to hit the interstate at more of a 90-degree. What that does is it's actually going to continue through as a development on the east side is going through its current planning stages. It's identified a continuation of that Moore Road. That will ultimately connect or terminate, I should say, at the CAP that currently exists. So at that point, that's where the road would extend to.
For people who don't know what the CAP is.
The Central Arizona Project, the large canal that takes water from the Colorado River and brings it over to Arizona and others. If you were to look at an aerial of the area in question, you would see the channel system. And so at this point, that development would take the roadway to the canal. with no plans at this point of going past that. So to answer your question, yes, in the future, but that would again be based on development and need in regards to traffic. From a purely traffic perspective, Dove Mountain is adequate to handle the current traffic on the roadway. It's more than enough of a roadway cross-section to accommodate that traffic. And obviously, I know we're talking about, an emergency situation in the egress, and I think the chief did a great job explaining how that would come about if it was truly that type of situation, emergency, that we needed to egress. And I think he hit it right on the head that we're not looking at the entire community hitting the roadway at once. Obviously, a community of that size, a hazard of that size that's going to impact the entire community, it would definitely be impacting those more likely furthest north or northwest. And as he mentioned, they would egress first and then it would go from there.
Very good. So when you say that the road network that's up there is sufficient to handle the traffic, you're basing that on your best guess, you're basing that on science, you're basing that on data, you're basing that on some sort of standard. Where's that coming from?
It's a complete wag.
I know that's not true, man. You're an engineer. They don't do that.
We don't do that. No, we have, there's counts up there. We know how much traffic. And in fact, I just looked at the counts prior to this podcast. So obviously I did my research.
A little bit of preparation.
A little bit of preparation. So just east of the roundabout at the Ritz, which is one in question that everybody was concerned about, which would capture the traffic that's generated to the west of that roundabout and north of it, the Ritz area. There was a traffic count taken back in 23 that showed there was about 6,400 vehicles, two-way traffic, and that's ADT, so that's average daily traffic on that roadway. A two-lane roadway is good for approximately 15,500 to 16,000 trips on a roadway like that,
wow.
Especially with minimal conflicts, meaning minimal driveways, because that road is pretty much, there's a few entrances, the subdivisions,
Right.
but there's not many movements causing that type of friction. So what that says is obviously the roadway has ample capacity, and as you extend a little bit east of that roundabout, it becomes a four-lane road.
Mm-hmm.
And that 15 to 16,000 bumps up to about 35 to 40,000 trips that it's able to handle. So, and as I looked through the traffic counts, the highest counts I saw, which was just south of the Moore Road, the northern portion of Moore Road, it was approximately 13,000 trips. That was the highest trips along the entire roadway. So that's two-way traffic.
They've got room for a lot of capacity then.
They have room for a lot of capacity.
And they're getting close, quite frankly, to build out, right?
Correct.
So there probably isn't going to be a significant increase in traffic on Dove Mountain Boulevard.
No, in fact, they're building the last remaining subdivisions on the northwest area, and they're getting pretty close to being built out.
Very good. All right. Well, folks, I really appreciate it. Chief, thank you so much for joining us for the program here today.
You're welcome.
Fausto, again, always wonderful to have you on the show. And I hope for our residents, and certainly this has been a very difficult time for the people in California that are going through this horrific fire situation, and we fully understand why it is impacting people here in terms of concerns, anxiety, stress, whatever may be coming along with that. And I hope what we've done here today is help to alleviate some of that, and so that you know that the officials responsible for handling these things have given great thought and consideration and are ready to respond to these needs. And knowing that, hearing, I think very specifically from the fire chief, that the chances of this are so very small. I think that was very encouraging to hear. So, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions, bringing those to our attention so we have an opportunity to answer and respond. And please continue to join us here with each and every episode. Until next time. Some submit your questions by visiting maranaaz.gov/realtalk, and we'll answer them right here. To receive notifications for new releases, remember to hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, remember to follow the town on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date on current news and events.